Greetings, salutations, and hallucinations, O steam defenders. We're back again for Vaping with Uncle JoeJoe. Tonight, by request, I'm going to be doing a side-by-side between the Youde Technologies Goliath version 1 and the Eciggity Ehpro Billow 2. Now, these two tanks are known for being able to take the tanks off and work on the deck separately without having to empty out the tanks. And both of them have their pros and their cons. And we're going to take them apart and take a look at them so that you can decide which one's best for you. After all, it's your money, your tank. You need to buy what's best for you, not what's best for Mr. So-and-so on the YouTube channel, right? Hold tight, I'll be back in just a second. And here they are. The Goliath from Youde Technology. This is the version 1. And the Billow 2 from Eciggity and Ehpro. Now, side-by-side comparison, you can tell virtually identical in height, but that's because of these cooling fins at the top. Tank size, that's a different story. The Billow 2 holds 5 mils, the Goliath 3.2. Significant difference. You'll also notice this knurling band, that is for the juice control. When you look at the back, you can see that little mark there. It's a little arrow that points up, and it points up to here, which is a large. That means you're wide open. And as you turn it, there, she's completely closed. That closes off the juice control. Now, according to Youde, that's so if you use like a 50-50 juice, you can shut it off, or if it overwicks. Personally, I've run 50-50 without any issue whatsoever in any of my goblins, and I have 3 of these things. So I think personally that's a gimmick. On that end of it all, what it does pay a huge dividend for is when you have that closed, you can take your tank off sitting straight up like this, and it doesn't lose a drop because it is closed. It seals the tank. I'll quit. And keeps it from leaking. Next over we're going to look at is going to be airflow. At the bottom here, there is a trim ring that fits over this that you can turn. It locks over this little black rubber O-ring here. Now the problem with it is when you want to take the tank off, you have to basically grab here. That thing just spins, so you wind up having to take it off anyway. Now since I run mine wide open airflow, I just leave it off and leave it in the box. I take it off, put it back in the Goliath box, and leave it there, and it stays. That's up to you. It's just something I'm pointing out so that you'll understand what's going on. That there is a little ring that slides up, pops over this. It's the same width as this piece here. Just like if you've used a goblin, you've seen it. It's the same one. Actually, the Thulu has one on it as well. The Billow 2 uses a ring that's built in, something like say your Atlantis, for example. It's a rather large air hole. It'll turn all the way to there and stops, and it comes back to here and stops. All the way closed. There's all the way open, or whatever in between. And that's on both sides of the tank. There's 2 of them. Now, a lot of people will notice right off the bat, that's a lot bigger hole. But then you look at the chimneys and say, but the Goliath has a bigger chimney. But then you look down the barrels and, they're virtually identical. That's going to be your bottleneck, is going to be your chimney, so that's going to limit your airflow. No matter how big the hole is down here, you can only get so much air through there with your lungs. So airflow, really and truly, when you get down to it, is virtually identical. Flavor is fairly close to identical also. So what is the major differences? Well, those of you who are in the know are aware that the main advantages of these tanks is being able to take the tank off of the base without emptying it out to work on your wicking. They go about it in 2 different ways, as you can tell. Now first we're going to look at the tanks themselves very quickly. This is a multiple piece design. It's a little bit more complicated than the Billow. First of all, you have to take your top off with its air cooling fins. There's your tank, this one's cracked, which is why it's not in use at the moment. This is your chimney, which is it is a 2-piece design. Here's your juice control system. These 2 pieces come apart. so you can clean them very easily. When they're dry, there's your capture pin here. There's your narrow slot here. That is your capture slot. That pin rides in the capture slot, keeps it from over traveling. Very simple. Now if you'll look at your chimney once it's been reassembled back into one piece, there's a slot here, there's a notch here, and a notch here. And if you'll notice here on these, it's not perfectly round. There's flat here and here. Now what that does is uses those to capture this top piece. Now this will slide through. Just move it until it sits up high here, snaps into place, you're done. Basically, you're going to hold it, put your finger up against it here. As you can see, it can't move back and forth because it's caught in this. That allows this piece here to travel back and forth. Then you're going to take your tank. Now, this is a lot easier to do without holding it sideways, but then again, you don't have to do it in front of a camera, so you're going to be a little easier to do for you. Now this complicated mess only comes into play when you're cleaning it. Once you've done it 3 or 4 times, trust me, it won't bother you a bit. You won't even think about it. It's not really a con, just pointing out that this is a little bit more complicated design because of your juice controls. Now, Eciggity and Ehpro, on the other hand, went with a minimalist design. It's very elegant, very efficient, and I love efficient. It's a one-piece chimney. Kind of odd looking, but hey, it works, and that's all that matters. Thinking a little bit outside of the box. This pressure fits over a black O-ring here. Very, very easy to do. Very easy to take apart and clean. All of your threading is very nicely done, very nicely deburred, goes together very easily. Great machining. Better machining than on the Youde. All of my Youde have had slight, very tiny issues that I've had to clean up myself. Now we'll get down here and look at the bases now that we've got the tanks out of the way. Oh, one more thing. This thing does not have juice control. It's also a little bit harder to fill because, as you can see here, these slots here have been pulled down. They're not up against the edge. The thickness of your drip tip will come into play when you're putting it up against this. It tends to ride, and you tend to have to go in at an angle instead of straight in. With this one, it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. It's a very minor thing, but it is something to consider. If you knock this tank over and it rolls around, it's going to spill everywhere because those slots are right up against the glass. So everything in it pours out. I know this because I've done it. That's why I love juice control. If you're not clumsy like me, you probably won't consider this much of an issue, but it is something to think about and consider. Now, next up, we're going to look at the design of the decks themselves. The first thing you'll notice is this one has a collar over the top of it, kind of like a Joytech, what is it, the Delta 2. I thought this at first to me, I thought it was a con, but I had a viewer kindly point out that, you know what, this is a very nice thing. Once you get it wicked, you screw this over it and it protects the wicking, so when you put it back into the tank, you don't mess your wicking up. Let me demonstrate. If you'll notice the way this is done, there's your threading around the base. They drilled the deck and the juice canals into it. They're drilled into the threads. This means this can go on and cross thread, as you can tell, actually pretty doggone easily. I've caught myself several times cross threading, pull it back out. I've messed my wicking up, have to redo it. So I've learned to be very careful and precise when putting these two together so that I don't do that. The next thing you'll notice is I've got an oddball screw. I lost a screw, and also when I looked to look for it, found out I also lost the box of the Billow too with the goodie pack, so I had to scrounge. There you go. That's what happens when things like these. When you're me, these things happen a lot. It's called a Joeism. Next thing you'll notice, though, in actuality, is 2 posts on the Goliath, 4 posts on the Billow. I prefer a 4 because I can put a coil on this side, lock it down, get it adjusted, and I'm done. Flip it to the other side, and do the other one. With this, you pretty much have to do both coils at the same time, so it's a little bit more complicated to do. It's not a major thing. I just prefer 4 over 2. Next, if you want to look at the actual juice canals, they're virtually identical. This one just has a bigger deck. See, it actually has a deck. Which, if you look right here, this area here is a deck, then you have your juice canal. That's why it's forgiving. You can kind of pack this full of cotton and dribble some into here and you're done. The Billow doesn't technically even really have much in the way of a deck. It does, but it's a very tiny, minimalized affair. So this one is a bit harder to wick. You have to be very careful with your wicking. It's not nearly as forgiving as a Goliath. I did do a video on how to wick the Billow 2, and I wicked this one the same exact way, and they both work fantastic. I haven't had any issues. I run this tank 50, 60 watts all day long because I don't like a hot vape, but you can run it higher. Next thing you'll notice is you have much larger post holes on the Goliath. Part of that is because it's a two-post design that can go with a bigger hole. The thing about that, folks, is that sounds great. It has to be bigger because it's two, because you're going to be fitting 2 wires in there. Now, a lot of people start thinking, oh, I might be able to fit up. No. So far, about the biggest I can really fit in here is generally a 26 gauge twisted on a 2mm, and that's it. Anything bigger than that, and you're going to start running into problems with your chimney walls hitting, not wanting to fit, dead shorts, that kind of thing. So if you're looking for anything exotic, you can pretty much hang it up with a tank unless you get a micro coil, and I never like those because of wicking issues. And they'll go defy a truck. Somebody had a wreck somewhere. All right. Now, I'm not really not able to testify on whether you could put the really exotic coils in there. I don't like building coils. It's not something I enjoy doing. So I tend to stick with a 26 gauge twisted. I twist, that's it. For my RDAs, if I want anything really exotic, alien wires, Claptons, and all these off-the-wall ribbons and all this wild stuff way beyond my ability, I don't want to know how to do it. Just not my thing. I'm going to call my boy Ryan McLeod at McTwisted Coils. I'll put a link down there just for the heck of it. He'll hook you up with those exotic coils. Uncle JoeJoe, no. Twisted's all I can handle, folks. Now again, we're going to put it together here. Look at this. This goes on. Now you can go in here. With this one, no. You can't, once you get this on, now you can adjust everything, get your everything set up, everything looks perfect. This one you really can't do that. You're going to screw it on, and that's what you got is what you got once it goes together. Now, the other thing is this actually acts as a capture here with your chimney because it slides directly over that. Just look at this, see? Super, super easy to put together. Threads are buttery. I love it. All in all, if it was me personally, I go with the Billow 2. It's, to me, the better tank. This one has juice control. This one holds more juice. This one's easier to wick, but this one you can play with the wicking once you get it wicked. All in all, I do like the Billow 2 personally, but I wanted to put this together so that you could look at it and decide what's best for you, since everyone is different. All right, that should do it. I'm going to be back in just a minute with a bye-bye and a few final thoughts, and I'll see you in just a second. And here we go. Final thoughts. Hopefully this helped anyone out there to make an informed decision between these two tanks. As I said, I did a wicking video on the Billow 2. I wick them both the same way as a habit now. And this one here, not quite as forgiving. It's a little bit harder to wick. You got to be a little bit more precise with it. She's finicky. On the other hand, once you get her wicked properly and you put that collar on there, you can adjust it a little bit if you need to, and everything goes back together buttery smooth, and she holds a full 5 mils of juice versus the Goliath's humble 3.2. This one has juice flow controls. You can shut the juice off, take your tank off, set it down, don't have to worry about it, if you remember to do it. If you remember to shut it off. Now the beautiful part is when you grab this and you turn this, it pretty much shuts itself off because it turns, that's the way that closes, and when you screw it on and it bottoms out, it automatically opens. So it's pretty much an automatic thing. They thought this out. So that's a great thing. On the other hand, this one here does hold more juice. Because of that collar, it's also, once it slides on, boom, you're on. The Goliath, as I said, because of them drilling into the threading, can be a little bit more of a booger bear to put back together again. So it's kind of a pretty much an even Steven deal. Flavor and airflow again, very close to the same. 5 mils of juice versus 3.2. She's a finicky little booger to work on. This one's very forgiving. You can put some old ugly wicking up in here and it will work. Again, personally, I prefer the Billow too, by a hair, by a very, very, very thin margin, but still I do. Just because of the fact that, hey, this thing holds 5 freaking mils. Even I take a minute to go through that much juice. I mean, that's... You're looking here, 5 mils. Yes, sir. All right, I'm out of here. If you don't mind, hit me a like and subscribe. If you don't mind, it's no big deal. I'd appreciate it, but you don't have to. It's not like I'm going to charge you if you don't, or give you a bonus if you do. Just one of them things you can do to say thank you to the old man for taking the time. All right. It's Friday night. I'm about to get out of here. I think I'm going to call up a certain lady and talk to her for a little while. I ain't talked to her in a little while. I think I will. Fun part about being single. I can talk to all them honeys I want to, and nobody can say nothing about it. Ha! All right. If your life does not seem to be as well as it should, things are not going quite right, and stress is kind of high, get with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Jesus is the way, my brother. He will hook you up. Because I'm going to tell you what, when you let go, you let God, you give him your problems, he gives you peace. Trust him and his word. He will take care of you. All right. Now, until next time, I want everybody to have an absolutely magnificent life. I hope everything is just awesome for you, because I love each and every one of you. I really and truly do. And until next time, Uncle JoeJoe says unto you, as always, peas and cornbread.